Hello, one and all. My name is Daniel G. Wilson. I'm your host for this year's version of Festival Lingua Franca. Hi, Dylan. And yeah, so this year has been kind of a crapshoot. I think we can all agree, right? Uh, you know, between a pandemic happening, protests. Oh yeah, there were fires. Two hurricanes in 1 year attacking the same place. They both missed Jamaica, so I'm happy about that. But yeah, it's been hell. And I wish I was funnier, but I'm not. So yeah, I'm about to start the streams. It's 4 days of events for Lingua Franca. We got a bunch of cool artists, and possibly some surprises. By which I mean I have no idea what I'm gonna do next. But whatever. Today we're going to start with two artists and some interviews. Basically, we're going to start with seasonal depression lasts forever, and Apollo Architect, who's going to be opening up the night in a few minutes, realistically. And yeah, outside of that, expect some awesome stuff. We got some cool stuff tomorrow, Sunday, and then Monday. I'll be playing for John Crow, and I'll be closing the night. Well, the entire festival on Monday. It's also my birthday. I'll be 24. Yeah, I'm an old. I'm old. Yep. God. Why do I book these things every year on my birthday? Oh yeah, that's right. I want good luck. Fuck that. All right. So thank you. So without further ado, I'm going to sign off. Please check the link tree in the description of this account. There's going to pretty much all the streaming links are up there. Twitch, basically Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook if you're interested in that, because I'm going to be sharing it to the event page. Yeah, otherwise, wish me luck. This is going to be very, very, very arduous. But yeah, and without further ado, ciao. So, Paul Architect's set was amazing. Alrighty. Now we're going to have a little intermission between sets. Going to play you a music video. Yes, I know it's a bit self-aggrandizing. I'm going to play you a drunk music video, and then I'm also going to play you part of an interview that I did for the, leading up to the festival. I'm going to start this one off with the band that's playing tomorrow, and Maddist. So stay tuned for that one because that interview is amazing, and their set tomorrow is going to be amazing. So stay tuned. And yeah, without further ado, uh, on to the intermission. And after that, we at 8 o'clock sharp. We will be premiering the set of Seasonal Depression is Forever. I hope I got that right. Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel G. Wilson, and this is the second episode of the Festival Lingua Franca interview series. Today on the interview series, I will be talking to the illustrious and enigmatic animatist. Hi, guys. Let me start off by saying thank you for being on the show. It is an honor and a pleasure to have you on. And without further ado, please introduce yourselves.
Go first.
I'm Danielle. Pronouns. I use she, her pronouns. You can also use they, them for me. I don't really care.
That's it? You're not going to say what you do in the band or anything?
Do anything in the band.
All right, that's Danielle. She doesn't do anything in the band.
Token girl in the band.
Token girl. My name's Brent. He, him is fine. I play guitar in Animatist. I also kind of organize and run the band a little bit, do a lot of the back end stuff, and yeah, we're a band.
I'm saxophone and synth.
Woo!
We don't even know what we are. We don't know. We don't know what we do in the band. It's fine.
Enigmatic is right, man.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what's going on.
You got it off the top.
Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone know what do any of us really know what we're doing at all? You know what I mean? Does anyone really know?
Hindsight is not 20/20. Not the year we're living.
Yeah.
For this year.
I thought I knew what I was doing yesterday for like 5 minutes, but I was wrong.
Yeah, fuck 2020. All right. Now, without further ado, I'll start asking y'all some questions.
Hard questions.
So let's start this off. So, first off, you guys recently released an LP, Inverted, which I do believe.
Are you gonna get it, or are we gonna get it?
I was gonna go get it. Here we go.
I do believe that I have here.
I didn't have to get up to get it.
With some lovely art involved, some lovely cover art, and an art insert, which, you know, I'm a nerd, so I love this type of shit.
You gotta have that extra stuff. If you're buying vinyl, like every time I open it up, I'm like, okay, what are the extra goodies that I got?
Yes. It's the best part, because I'm like, you know, if I just wanted nothing, I just get it digitally. Get that thing digitally, and just like, you know, like give me something to chew on. And I have to say, it is one of the it's by far one of my favorite releases of the past summer. Every song is quite it falls along with the enigmatic descriptor, dare I say, especially the place names. You guys always have a knack for song titles.
The song titles? Oh.
Who came up with the most song titles on this album?
Ian, probably.
Yeah. It falls a lot on our drummer Ian or our bassist Steve. I gotta give a shout out to them, even though they're not here. Like, they, I think, are the predominant song titlers, I guess.
Nice.
We took a long time to pick them, is the other thing. We'll like leave a song unnamed for like 8 months and then we'll pick a song title because we have to print a song title on the album. So
fair. It's more interesting than like my method. Usually for me, like whenever I name songs, like I just make some obscure reference to either history, culture, or something nerdy, or like a linguistic reference. If we're up to me, I'd name like half my band's songs in Spanish just because it doesn't sound as lame, and the actual translation, like if in English, is just lame. So I'm like, I'm like, oh, whoa, that's so generic. Lobos. That sounds exciting.
I think our song titles and stuff are references a lot too, but they're often references to in jokes or like some like one thing we saw randomly one time that stuck in our brains. So we were like in the process of naming all the songs for the album. We were like, oh man, what do we do? What do we do? And then me and Brent were gaming one night. We were playing Mario Odyssey.
Mm-hmm.
And we were getting up to one of the levels, and the boss battle came, and it flashed on the screen, Showdown on the Inverted Pyramid, and we were like, that should be the album name. that should be the album name. We couldn't, that's the album name right there. And then we decided not to do that. We just gave it to a song.
But there we go. Same thing as what you said, like a very oddly specific reference to something that even people that have played that game would be like, oh, cool song name. What's it from?
It reminds me of Slint in a way. Like, if you have ever watched like the documentaries about Slint, it's like that same kind of sense of humor and just in jokes everywhere.
Yeah, that was on YouTube, right? Like it's one you can find on YouTube or no?
I mean, I'm not gonna say yes or no.
You gotta watch out for the sponsors, right?
All I know is that I've watched it. But
yeah, I think I saw the same one, and I noticed the same thing. I was like, "Oh, people have been doing this for a while. We're not, in fact, original. It's just the thing that the nerd bands do."
But yeah, I was just about to say that. I think I noticed it happen in like math bands and like technical bands more because the
It's
point.
instrumental.
It's instrumental, and it might have emotional moments or what have you. But when we're writing it, we're not trying to be like, let's really evoke this emotion. It's just sick riffs. That's what it is, right? And that's what it is with math bands and then instrumental bands and techie bands. A lot of the time, it's just sick riffs.
Sick riffs.
So we write the riffs first, and then we're like, what do we name this?
What do you guys want to call these sick riffs?
Sick riff number 37.
There it is. That's the next. That's the next song title.
I'm gonna just like see an album, your next album or EP or whatever, and just gonna be like, oh, sick riff number 37. So they did do it.
It's not unlikely that might happen. You might have heard it. This is an Animatus first right here. This is where you heard it first.
Ooh, wonderful. All right. Now, speaking of math and prog and sick riffs, you guys have been a part now in the illustrious, large yet small comparatively scene of Southern Ontario DIY punk adjacent music. There is and has been a very interesting, I guess, progressive, aspect to it as well with certain contingents. So I'm curious, like, what is that like being more involved in that kind of, I guess, for lack of a better term, like prog mathy kind of scene?
Do you mean as opposed to like just regular hard rock, I guess?
No. more just like what's that like your experience being like a band like that in Southern Ontario? Like what is that contingent like?
Yeah, because there's not like really like a honed in prog scene or like a honed in math scene. So I guess it is kind of funny because we often talk about like what kind of bills would we fit on, and there's like so many bands who don't sound like us that we want to play with, and we're like, but would that work? I don't know. And also because we come from a jazz background, we find like we're like always towing the line between rock and jazz and like playing between two types of venues. So like I think like our home base is like loud music venues where rock bands usually play, but we've also like played in like smaller venues where jazz artists play, or we've played alongside jazz groups and jazz bands where we were like a little too rock, and then when we're in the rock scene we're like a little bit too jazz. So it's funny like towing the line and like sitting on the fence, but I like it. It means we get.
I think I know what you mean. Like, I felt a lot of times when we're at a rock show, it's too techy or it's not raw enough, but we're not good enough to play with the jazz band.
Yeah.
Like, when we get there, I'm like, oh, we're like the sloppy, not tight band tonight.
Yeah.
There's such a different world of like excellent musicianship there, and it's certainly something we strive for. But yeah, on either side of the fence, it feels weird because I don't feel like even the math and prog scenes that do exist, I don't feel like our music is emblematic of where those scenes are focusing as well. It's almost like we don't fit into a scene that's like a consistent scene. We're kind of like jumping
we're so enigmatic.
No, we're like no, I just
you can't define us.
I just mean it feels like I've had this experience myself my whole life. It feels like I don't have one consistent friend group. It feels like I'm jumping around to all these different little circles, and I feel like our band is doing the same thing. We're kind of every moment that we're in, we're jumping into a different circle and trying to exist there when we're there.
Yeah, which I like. I like it. I think it's a positive thing, and I think that when we try to like pigeonhole ourselves into like one thing or another, it just gets very silly. It's not us in what we do. So I don't know. maybe like I try to think we try to make a stronger statement one way or another, or be more this or be more that, but I think what we do works, and so we don't have to do that as much.
I think it works. Also like neatly fitting into boxes is lame.
Yeah. It's nice sometimes because people arrange bills that way sometimes, or arrange festivals that way sometimes. So it's nice because if you're a little bit of both, they might consider you because you have an aspect of it. But if you're like not enough of that thing, they might be like, no, that's not really what we're going for. But I don't know.
Fair. For me, usually like whenever I like book bands or like even the festival, like I focus on rock primarily. But like my definition of rock or punk is like stretched so far that because that is just stretched so far that like at certain points it'll be like okay, like it'll be like okay, like this band, it'll be like okay, this band, most people are not necessarily going to say this is a rock band, but like this band is basically a rock band even though they're not necessarily a rock band. You know what I mean? It's like I often use the example of say Prince, because Prince and the Revolution, in my opinion, were like a rock band, right? But because, well, for reasons we'll discuss later on, Prince, no one, people called him an R&B act or occasionally a pop act, but they never thought of him as like a rock act. Though, in my opinion, he was as much like that group, particularly in the 80s, like between 80 and like 87 are like they're one of the best rock bands like in America at the time. Though you never really see them talked about in like the same kind of in rock circles as much. You know what I mean? So the boundaries of what constitutes even rock, even certain genres, I'm like, how narrow can you really why make it narrow? You know what I mean?
I think that's how it should be, and I think we've talked about this before where we tend to type things together, and why don't you just make a bill with like sick bands? Why do we think so much about like what people will like? Why do we think about what this audience is going to be into? Like if they like this band, well then we should also put on this band that sounds exactly the same. And why can't we trust our audience a bit more and trust them to just have good taste? and share that same like good taste with us, or challenge them a little bit, something they haven't heard before, and trust that they will like it, or will be open enough to receive a new different type of experience,
like at least be interested by it. Yeah.
So
well
totally.
I don't know if you sorry
go on.
I don't know if you experienced the same in the Mississauga scene, but when I was growing up in the Brampton scene, there's every bill, I think it was maybe because there just weren't that many bands, so there wasn't like an overarching scene where you could be like, hey, tonight is a punk night, tonight is a whatever night, right? A specific genre. But every show that I went to was like, you would have 4 to 5 completely different artists that really didn't have something that put them all together. And that was what kind of defined the scene. Like you might have a group that's really influenced by hip hop, then there'd be some solo bizarre electronic act that's like throwing things at the audience, and then it'd just be a regular rock band after that might have a bit of indie influence. Like it'd just be this weird night of changing atmospheres and attitudes, and it I don't know, I miss those shows. I don't see them happen as often here. There is, like, in Toronto, there is a necessity to see kind of bands that they all fall into the same thing. But the point that you were making, that you can have a really broad idea for what rock is or what punk is, and capture all these bands into this realm, put them all together, and they'll work together, fit together, sound good together. That makes sense?
Oh, definitely. I had the similar, being in from Mississauga. That's one of the reasons why I have that ideal, because like, it's just like, it's just like there aren't that many bands. It's like, there's always a contingent of pop punk bands, terrible pop punk bands.
Yeah, but there's a lot of them. No, you're right. There's like, it's endless.
But outside of that, like if you actually want to make like interesting music, like actually interesting music, like there's only like maybe less than 10 bands at any given point, any given like 5-year period.
Yeah.
And we all just play with each other because like, what else are we gonna do? It's like, oh yeah, it's like it's like you can't say, oh, I don't want to play with this hip hop fusion act. I'm like, well, who else are you gonna play with?
Yeah.
And then the other question is like, why don't you want to play with them? Like, why isn't that the coolest thing ever? Why wouldn't you be like, dude, we're playing with a hip-hop fusion band tonight, and we're a screamo band. Isn't that wild? And then just let it happen, right? Like,
right? Agreed. At least in Toronto, I would say the only issue I would have there, honestly, is more along the lines of like just draw for some ungodly reason. There's like, I think there's like I don't know if it's like the audience in that city is like trained to kind of just not necessarily, like they'll enjoy it. That's the thing. They'll enjoy like a bill that's a bit more broad, even if not necessarily going completely out of genre, but like just kind of bands like that wide assortment of rock music. Is like, like you'll have an all psych band bill, but then like all these psych bands, realistically speaking, like, you could pick one of these psych bands and put them next to a screamo band. It would be the most fantastic thing you've ever seen in your life. But that doesn't happen because like, I know people just form their insular groups instead of just like,
Yeah, I think it's an issue of this happens with every art institution, whether it's a scene or like a company, a theater, or an agency. Like, they just start to take what works and use the formula because people will pay for it and it's comfortable, and they don't want to put people into discomfort because they think people will stop paying for that. So I think our job, and it is a responsibility, and we have an obligation to resist that urge as artists and challenge everybody wherever we can, because it's important, and you learn things from discomfort and you like expand your horizons, right? It's about like a collective expansion of horizons for audiences everywhere. Agreed.
Plus Plus, it also means less all pop punk band bills.
Exactly. There, you can't lose.
I don't know. At this point, if I was paying for discomfort, it would probably be to see a lot of those pop bands. Oh, that might come off as really mean. I'm sorry.
No, they deserve they deserve the shit.
It has its place.
Like there are good pop punk bands. It's already well known in one of them all. There are good pop punk bands, but like that's like 1 in 1,000.
Yeah.
It's like
well,
one
a lot
in
of bands anyways.
Well, they're catchy as hell. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I can hate it, but like the more I listen to it, the more I'm like, it's in my head, and then you start to sing it ironically, and then it's not so ironic anymore, and
then you know all the words.
Now you love pop punk.
You know. Oh God, I could go on. I could rail against
you
these.
know.
I mean, yeah. Like the Buzzcocks were technically a pop punk band. The Ramones are technically a pop punk band. And while I'll forever have my thoughts on, Fall Out Boy, most of them not good. Pete Wentz.
Yeah.
Pete Wentz is a respected lyricist, and he's half Jamaican. So, well,
yeah, that's something I really found.
He's half Jamaican. I just found that out right
now. Yeah, he's like half Afro-Jamaican.
Okay,
cool.
I think I found out that he was like not white totally, and I was like, oh, I didn't know it was half Jamaican.
Yeah, the reason is he basically straightens his hair so you don't notice.
I mean, a lot of even people with straight hair were doing that to get that perfect line that comes down that straight.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's some interesting stuff of pop punk, but but like the amount of like generic ass bands that pick that template is just like I just hear the ultra clean vocals and I just want to vomit. But enough of that.
Expand your horizons, God.
Some of it's good. Some of those ultra clean, some of those bands are good. But like a lot of them are also generic. I gotta weed out the trash. But oh God. But enough of that. All right. So this forms a nice segue. Let's get into some more interesting topics. Now, as a band, right? As a racially diverse band, as a gender diverse band, what's the experience like playing shows? Like, what's the experience like playing shows? Like we live in like our scene, we live in the scene, we play in the scene, and it's predominantly like first off white dominated scene. And then it's also, and on top of that, you also have like a male dominated scene on top of that as well. And it's just, it's a very interesting field to navigate. So I'm curious what your thoughts on an experience as a band that is not, shall we say, typical of actually Canadian music in general, really.
So I think because, like you say, racially diverse and gender diverse, but by one member, like it's just me. So I think a lot of the time, because I watched a little bit of your interview with Cut Sleeve, and they're all Asian, they're all women or non-binary. I wasn't sure, but they're all not white dudes. Okay, so I think a lot of the time they might run into a little more of that, like, what are you doing here? But I have like a shield of 3 white dudes around me, so any of the pushback, and it usually comes in the form of microaggressions, right? Because we're all a little bit, we're not racist anymore, at least overtly correct, right? So you don't see a person of color walk in and you go, what are you doing here? It's a little more covert than that. So I think a lot of the things I experience are like in my own head, or they are like little microaggressions that suddenly go away when, you know, you walk in with like this guy, or you like, you know, sometimes are like, oh, you're the girlfriend of the band, one of the band guys, or this kind of thing, that kind of microaggression stuff, or, you know, any like hesitations that they had towards you drop away when they're like, oh, your band's actually sick, like oh, you actually play your instrument really well. Okay. So I think it's a little bit different because I think, you know, I get a little bit of that, or like but like the rest of my band won't get that. Or, you know, I don't think anyone's asked you like, oh, you're a girl in your band. They just come up to me and they go, are you the singer?
Yeah, no, that's very true. No, not a single person has addressed this. I was just thinking that before you said it. Nobody talks to me or I think any other band member about this.
Yeah.
Which I think is part of the issue.
Yeah, and it's always like, it's funny things like, and I'm just like getting into examples now, but like we were loading up the car after a gig, and these like older couples came by and they were like, oh, you guys are musicians, and we're like, yeah, and they're like, oh, what kind of stuff do you play, and blah blah blah, and I'm there like loading the gear too, and then they're going, oh, and she plays the saxophone, and they're like, you're in the band too? Good for you.
Oh yeah, they said good for you.
Good for you. I'm just here like carrying the gear, dude. Like I'm just, here you go, guys. I don't know. It felt very silly. Like, you know.
Good for you.
Good for you. And then after the good for you, it's like, oh, you must be the singer.
Yeah.
Right? Because women don't play instrumental music. But it's all those like little assumptions and things like that. Or, you know, I always walk into a place and I'm like, great, who's gonna assume that I'm the girlfriend? Who? Wait, I'm waiting for it. But I don't know. It's nice because like I think I get to represent women. I didn't, like, as much as I get the microaggressions, I also get the positive feedback from the people that I feel like I'm there for. So, you know, every now and again, because it happens quite often that I'm the only woman on the bill, or I'm the only person of color on the bill. So weird. Or both at the same time, right? But, you know, someone will come and be like, your band is really good, and like, good job representing women. I like that. And, you know, that's like, you know, for me, that's like why I do it. Right? So there's that aspect to it too.
Nice. And relatable to a degree. With me I can me on the POC aspect, because like have you gotten like the comparison comment that just ruins your day? Like for me, it's like whenever I play a show and like people mention like the Bad Brains or Jimi Hendrix, I enjoy those like artists, you know, respect them because, you know, you know, right? But like at the same time, it's like, are those the only people you can compare me to? Like I'm more influenced by Texas is the reason, for God's sakes.
No, I know what you mean. And I think in terms of comparisons, we just get it to a lot of weird prog bands. But as an individual, which is I think what you mean, because you're the only Black dude in your band, right?
Yeah.
As an individual, I don't think there is a lot of representation for South Asian women in rock or alternative rock or experimental rock. So when people are trying to think of comparisons, I generally, like, nothing comes to mind, not even for me, right? So I don't get a lot of like comparisons that way. I do get a lot of stupid comparisons, but not to like esteemed women.
Comparisons to.
Just I don't.
Oh God.
That is something.
Maybe it's not like comparisons, but it's weird, like just weird, stupid innuendo things. Like, oh, you play the saxophone. That's really sexy, or that's really sexy.
Oh, how cringy.
Do you hear yourself? That's and I mean, I don't know. I don't even know how to answer this question because there's like not a lot, and I hear what you're saying because you had brought it up before with the Prince thing and the like. Oh, you think of it as an R&B band, and or you think of it as a rock band, but people think it's like R&B. And I was thinking the same thing happened with like FKA Twigs and so many other artists, but like for a specific example, like when she put out music, people didn't know that she was Black. And then they were like, oh, you can't define this music. It's like something new. We've never heard it before. And then they found out she was Black and they're like, it's R&B.
I know.
Makes sense. Right. But again, when you have a shield of like 3 white guys, you don't get like drawn into that so much. But I think also like in terms of like I don't know, the representation of the whole thing, I think I have a lot of thoughts on it, but it's funny just like being the only one that right? I'm sure they exist. They're just not in the mainstream, and they're not in my scene that I can see. Get a little bit of that in the jazz scene, get a little bit of like, because there's like plenty of women instrumentalists, and inevitably you're going to get women of color who are like crazy good at their instruments, crazy good at trumpet, crazy good at saxophone. But in the rock scene, weirdly, it's like you don't get that so much. I'm like trying to think of another South Asian woman or non-binary trans person who like plays a wind instrument, and I just can't do it. But I think that's why it's so important, because like if I don't do it, who's gonna do it? I have to do it. So
truer words have never been spoken. I had a similar experience or thought process, like doing like pretty much everything I do musically, or even academically to a degree. It's just like I realized like when as a kid, so you live in Jamaica and like everyone, like it's a Black dominated country, right? So like you see people like in all fields, like Black doctors, Black engineers, like literally like we have, it's a multiracial society, but like it's 90 something percent like Black or like mixed with Black to a degree. So like you see Black people like everywhere, but you still get a cultural melting pot. So like if you're Jamaican, realistically you don't have the same, like anyone can be anything, but you'll majority see Black people doing stuff. But like in terms of the things I usually want to do, like living here now, you don't see that as much, and especially in rock, like in Jamaica, for example, they don't have a rock scene at all.
mm-hmm.
And like I wanted to kind of, in living here, like now I know there's a lot, like right now as a Jamaican, like there's a large amount of Jamaicans I'm seeing who are like out and proud Jamaicans or just Caribbean people in rock today, in the local scene. And that wasn't there when I first got into the scene, when I was like 18, 19. And so I wanted to be that kind of representation. I wanted to kind of be that person who, like, if this idiot can do it, then I can, and then I can. Because just so people knew there was like other Jamaicans, other Caribbean people, other like Black people, like kind of doing this rock thing and not kind of letting everything get to them. And that's why I still do it. That's why I still do it. Most still do it because, like, you got to be that representation. You don't see it yourself. It's just
yes,
like
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, I was going to say that exact thing. That's like the meaning of be the change you want to see, right? Because when you don't see yourself doing the things that you would ideally like to do, a little part of you suffers, right? So representation is a gift that you give to other people that you never got. You're changing the world in a small way, I think. So
Agreed. Agreed. So now, staying within this topic, but oh,
Sorry.
go ahead.
okay. Staying within this topic, but kind of narrowing it down into a more personal aspect. Now I'm curious. Like, now Danielle, as you know, as a non-white person in rock music, while you know, like rock music and all of its offshoots are descended of, like, come from, like, BIPOC music comes from black music, and then got influenced by music from all over the world, for example. um Although, as time has gone on, it became whitewashed. My
Mm-hmm.
question for you, what made you get into that? Like, as I'm sure I'm not, for me, like, thankfully my family, like my mom's family, for example, are very, like, we get called Oreos a lot.
I called an Oreo in my lifetime. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because of, like, them, like, I kind of grew up kind of not being afraid to like rock music, you know what I mean, or not being thing, like, usually when people would call me, like, those names or whatever, I would just,
Mm-hmm.
like, well, I wouldn't throw a middle finger up to them, but, like, I just be like, I just give them the one eye and just kiss my teeth. But what was it like growing up? Like, what made allowed you to get into that, and what has your experience been, kind of, I guess, bucking the stereotype that is both pushed on us by outsiders and even by, like, our own fellow, non-white communities? Like, what was that like? What has led you here? I'm curious.
So when I was growing up, I didn't actually push back on stereotypes a lot. I don't know. There's so many things. So like growing up South Asian, I didn't actually I dabbled a little bit in like East Indian music and this kind of thing, Asian music, but like I didn't get a lot of it growing up. That was not my exposure. When I was growing up, we listened to the Beatles and Eric Clapton and white music, like made by white people, right? My dad is a musician, so that's where I got it from, and that's why I started learning music. But I don't think it's, I wasn't like pushing back on anything. I think the society we live in, if you're growing up in Canada, which I did, we listened to music made by white people. And because India was colonized, I guess, there's that too, where like a lot of the media that you consume is made by white people, or it's like exported goods. Comes from the UK or whatever. And America has that kind of like cultural reach worldwide too, globally. A lot of things that are American, they reach out globally and they reach other countries, and that's what becomes popularized there and becomes mainstream there. So I don't think it was me pushing back on anything to be South Asian and be like, I'm gonna play rock music. I think that's what we learned. I think that's the norm. And I loved rock music growing up. It was my first taste of like music that I found like hard hitting and interesting. But also growing up, I think there's this stereotype of like South Asian excellence and what have you. So, my dad being a musician, he wanted us to be excellent at music. So I got a very, the best education that my parents could provide for me in music, they gave to me. They like paid for the lessons and bought the instruments and did all of this stuff so I could learn and be the best. And I studied classical growing up. I studied classical guitar and I studied classical saxophone. So I didn't actually play rock music growing up. I just listened to it a lot. And then when I like branched out and became an adult, I was like, fuck all this. I'm going to play the music I want to play. And it's going to be more interesting and more, I don't know, exciting, intense, less classical, less white. But, we all know that like all the music that we play came from Black people, right? And then it was co-opted and stolen. So it, at this point it is just kind of like a hodgepodge because, there's some things you can attribute because I have to attribute like my classical training to white people. But then I also have to like be reverent to the fact that like rock music came from Black people, right? I think that we are doing ourselves a disservice when we think about classical music and classical training as like the music training to do when we're growing up. And I think that's what I got. If you're going to study music, you're studying classical training, unless you're doing post-secondary where the new classical is jazz. If you're studying music growing up, you're studying classical training. And that's just a whole bunch of white dudes and not a lot of anything else. So it's a complicated thing. I don't think it's breaking any boundaries. I think it's, we're a product of our environments, and that's how I got here.
Fair. And relatable. To make one, comparison. Tell me if you've ever gotten this comparison before. I guess in terms of from that what you just told me. I reminded of I think it was either an interview I read or watched. No, it was an interview I watched with Yvette Young, who, audience, if you do not know who Yvette Young is, if you want to talk about like POCs playing awesome music and riffs, for example, check out her and her band Covet. Literally, I every time I see her perform, I want to either quit guitar or just practice more or cry. both involve me crying. But no, she said like her parents like came from China, and like I believe her dad is a musician. I think both her parents are kind of in the artistic sphere. I think her dad's like a musician. And like her growing up, she studied like classical, I think piano and violin. Was it violin? And stuff like that. But then as she got older, like we became an adult, and after she went through music education and whatnot, she decided to go into rock music, play guitar, teach herself guitar, because like it became a source of a kind of freeing thing for her, and she just kind of went from there, right? I went from there, right? So that's an interesting kind of, I guess, parallel I dare make in terms of the interesting ways of how, say, we I guess or POC experience of just like your parents want you to meaning well, they want you to kind of go through what is I guess the classical education, or kind of go through certain routes, but then like we become adults and we're just like, yeah, fuck this shit. my own mom, when I was younger, she got me piano lessons. That only lasted like a couple of months. Ironically, I didn't express musical interest until I was 16. I got into rock when I was about 14 to 16. My brother and sister, my mom tried giving us all getting them like violin lessons as kids. Never stuck. I'm the only one who plays an instrument. Who plays instruments now. So it's interesting, kind of, I guess, that almost kind of shared aspect, I guess, where, in contrast to just, oh yeah, we just picked up a guitar one day, like a lot of us did, but like that kind of background in relation to music, it's interesting.
Absolutely. Agreed. I concur.
It's cool to know that about Yvette Young. I didn't know that because she's obviously like a bit of a hero in the math rock scene. She's an incredible player. I didn't realize she came from a classical background, but I think that makes sense with a lot of the style she plays with. So she's insanely technical.
Oh yeah. It is frightening, like how skilled she is. Like it is legitimately scary.
I think I've had that same reaction of like, well, I should probably just stop playing guitar. She did it. Like, there it is. That's the best guitar. I can't do that.
That's everything I wanted to do. It's done.
Yeah, she did it already. All right, whoops. I'll see you later.
Oh man, the only other person, like I guess, like in an American context, like I would, I guess, compare, but staying more in terms of a just kind of more traditional kind of proggy kind of avenue, I guess, would also be Tosin Abasi, uh, another monster as well. Although I'd be remiss to not say there are differences. Like in his case, like he often would describe, like, I think he's self-taught as a guitarist for the most part.
Wow.
But right.
Fuck, man. Fuck.
But like he would often say, like, his parents like wanted him to kind of go to the whole university route and everything else, instead of just strictly pursuing that. So again, that's another avenue of that, where it's just like, that's a POC experience, the POC experience, an immigrant, experience. So like, your parents want you to kind of, they mean well. They want you to have, make sure you have a good life, and from where they're coming from, sometimes it's just, it makes sense. Like being a musician, they don't really think that there's a there's a place for you in terms of like, how you get, a good job or different things. But it's always interesting seeing that kind of, I guess, shared experience in a way. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. There's a push pull to it as well. There's just a funny like thing that happened where like my dad, I went to school, like I did music throughout school, and then I went to university with a major in theater and minor in music. I completed my degree with that. And my dad like paid for all the lessons, bought me the instruments, made sure I did all the conservatory exams before I left for university. And then, I'm done school, done university. I'm in this band. And my dad's like, why don't you do like something else? Like, why don't you be a writer? And I was like, what? And he tried to tell me that like he's been in the music industry for this long and it's toxic and it's not good, and like do something else. And I was like, well, you paid for me to be here and do this, so I don't know what to do now. But I think it's like that, like I want you to like have a career, and I want you to, have a stable life and all of this stuff, even though music was my dream, and it, I wanted to give music to you because it was my dream, but I also want you to like have a career. So it's just this like funny mixed messages sort of thing. I think I was considered lucky when I was growing up because they were like, oh my god, my friends are like, you can like go to school for music, they just like let you go to school for the arts, you're so lucky. I have to be a doctor. I have to be a lawyer. I saw it upset me, some like wickedly talented actors and musicians who went to school for statistics because they weren't allowed to do acting. Like, well, like, blew me out of the water. Like, I was like, the amount of like maturity some of these actors had and like prowess these musicians had, and I'm like, you're never gonna pick that up again. It made me sad. But yeah, I was considered lucky, and now I'm grateful for that. But I also, it's never easy. It's never easy.
It scares me to think that the doctor that I'm going to see is like, man, I didn't even want to be a doctor. Just bummed they're not a musician. And then like I come in for whatever my appointment is, and they're like, so what do you do? And I'm like, I'm a musician, and immediately they don't give a shit about my health. I'm like, ugh.
Staying on this earth.
Yeah.
Oh God. My mom always makes the joke that like that's why we have like mediocre doctors in the world, or like shit lawyers, because you'll have people who just do it because it's a job, and instead of they actually want to do it, so they like they don't like it. I'd rather if your heart's set on being an actor, be an actor, because if you become a doctor, you could be the most mediocre doctor in the world. I don't want you treating me. Or I'd rather, yeah, like.
And then if they're an actor, they might be really good at convincing you of something that's not true at all.
Oh God. Good point. Good point. I'll tell you a funny joke. Like when I was first started playing guitar, like what did I say? I think I told my dad that I want to be in a band, that I want to be a band. Like one of the things I want to do with playing guitar. This was about a year or two before he died. And he was also an old man. Like he was born in 1930, so he was an old Jamaican dude. So he's like, nah, don't do it. He was fine me playing music. Like he was kind of a musician himself. He encouraged me playing music. He's the one who bought my first guitar and my first electric. When I was like, how old was I when I got my first electric? I was about 16, 17. But yeah, the joke was my mom was like, don't worry about him. He just he just associates bands, because he's Jamaican. He's an old Jamaican dude. He just associates bands with like smoking, it's like weed smoking Rastas. And the irony is that like I am the most like I've been straight edge pretty much my entire life. So like I'm the complete opposite of a weed smoking Rasta in a band. I don't even smoke cigarettes.
Oh my goodness, me neither, actually.
Right?
Yeah.
Same.
But yeah, so I guess that's just because the connotation for him, like he was fine with being a musician. He just didn't want me to join a band and become a miscreant.
Mm-hmm.
You can just look at it, you're like, don't worry, I got this. It's not gonna go.
Yeah. I sometimes imagine he's looking down. He's just like, well, I was wrong. But yeah. But that's interesting. I did not know about those things about you, Danielle. Good to know. I feel closer. I feel closer to you now.
Moving closer. I will move gradually further away.
I feel close to you, but I feel far from you because we're looking at you on a phone.
You're tiny.
Yeah, you are very small.
Listen, I'm 5'6" 3/4. I can't help it.
Well, right now you're stacked on top of like 7 different books, just so we could get up to the sites. It's a very small phone screen.
Oh well. My next like now Danielle.
Wait. Yes.
Oh, sorry, you were saying? Oh,
I only said the word segue. Please go ahead.
No worries. Now, onto a more lighter topic. Danielle, what is it like being a Daniel in the scene?
Y'all need to fuck off. There's too many. Too many of you. God damn. What happened? I don't understand.
At least you don't go by Dan. Because like when we coming from the Guelph scene, there's like 35 Dans there.
No, it's for real. It's for real, okay? Like when I was in university, I was like, I know 7 Dans and they all play guitar.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
You meet somebody at the show and be like, "What's your name?" Dan. You're like, "Yeah, it fucking is."
That's why I have the G. Like, I've been to the hospital. Like, they have to spend like 2 minutes looking for me because it's like, how many Daniel Wilsons? I use the that's why I use the G. They're just my actual name.
It is true though. You are known as Daniel G. Wilson. Like it's the full package.
Yeah.
It's Daniel G. Wilson.
It was a smart move, man.
Thank you.
Smart.
Yeah, good birthday.
Yeah. It's funny because to bring it back to the race thing, my mom wanted to give me and my siblings easy names because she didn't want our names to be hard to pronounce. And her name of all things is Lorelei, and people couldn't pronounce that or spell it. So she's like, heck if I'm giving my kids like some like unpronounceable whatever name.
Like she knew how hard it was.
Yeah. So they're getting easy names. They're getting the whitest names you could possibly imagine.
Oh God. Yeah, I think that's a common thing. You know, it's like ethnic people, and particularly like non-white ethnic people, like would like make their anglicize their names, right? But then when you're a non-white ethnic person, it's just like people specifically will not know how to pronounce a name, like Shir Sharonin, for example, or Siobhan. Like you see these Celtic names, and like people will know how to pronounce it. You just tell someone, "Oh, my name's Siobhan." It's not spelled Siobhan. Like here, like that's not how it doesn't sound like how it's spelled. But oh yeah, Siobhan. And then, but you tell someone like your name, and you're not a white person, and then suddenly they can't pronounce it. It's like, what?
Yeah, it's bad.
I don't, and it's funny how people never. I don't think people ever really realize that inherent bias they have. It reminds me of a Key and Peele sketch actually.
Of course.
And it's funny because and it's even weirder considering that like like the hardest names are like for a lot of like even like non-white ethnic people's names, like our names are not even the hardest to pronounce. Like in my case, right, like Jamaicans, like your last name, your name is usually like a standard Old English name or maybe something in a Spanish kind of name. And then whatever like your last name is based on either different things, often to your racial ancestry. So like, I could have been named Daniel Hanna if I was like Lebanese Jamaican, or Daniel Chin if I was Chinese Jamaican, or Daniel something German if I was German Jamaican. But like, if you have you ever like looked up like Icelandic names or Hungarian?
Oh God, yeah.
like those are actual hard names, but people don't talk about that. But whatever.
Yeah, we're also not in like a lot of close proximity to like Icelandic names in where we live.
But everybody knows how to pronounce Bjork. Like that's like one of the most common. Everybody knows that, even though it's only a little weird with the J, but it's still like everybody figured out what that name is. It's the same as like Game of Thrones. Everybody knows how to pronounce all of those characters' names. They learn it in like 2 seconds. Oh yeah, Daenerys Targaryen. Yeah, I got it. Like, wait, you just learned that name out of nowhere?
It's funny you bring up the last names thing too, because my last name is Fernandes, which is Portuguese. And that happened because of like missionaries and stuff, way before when I was born. So people get confused by that a lot. Or people say, oh, you're Danielle and you're East Indian. That's a French name. Your last name is Portuguese. What's all that about?
What are you?
In short, everybody wanted me to be white. And here I
am. That is a concern I have had myself. So like you'll notice like the way I talk, right, is just like it's just a standard Canadian, like Southern Ontario Canadian accent. Without, I don't say a boot, for example. It's just like a standard Canadian non-accent, though, it is an accent, but I don't realize it.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that, though, like I like basically half grew up in Jamaica. The only reason, but like my family, like, so my mom came here when she was 10. She code switches. And my dad never left the country. So like he still talked like thick Patois. And like I grew up around people speaking like Patois as their first language. And I understand it fully and I can speak it, but I never got the accent because like I was never encouraged to code switch. My dad always wanted me to speak proper English.
Yeah. Yeah. That's you.
Yeah, so like I never developed like a native Jamaican accent. Like when I speak Patois, I have an accent, but like it's kind of like, it's like if you speak like perfect, like fluent, like Spanish or French or Japanese or say Yoruba, but because like you just don't have an accent, like if you were like lived there your entire life. You speak it, everyone knows, even though your accent is good, they'll know like, okay, yeah, this person not from here. Even though like if I went to Jamaica right now, I'd be like, oh, you mean me not from ya? And like, they just think I have an uptown accent, but yeah, it's just like, it's just kind of the whole like blending in aspect. Like one of my concerns as well, like my name, just because by nature of the fact that I'm Jamaican, my name is not gonna necessarily sound ethnic. Even though we actually analyze it, like, okay, yeah, he's Jamaican, it makes sense, named Daniel Wilson, but like at the same, because like, I have a mixed ancestry, but like we never can. My dad's family is just like, that's his name. And for the most part, like, sometimes I have concern, like if people are gonna make assumptions, like, like one of my worries with shows or doing anything is like people will hear my voice but not see me, or they'll see my name anywhere and not see what I look like, and then they'll immediately assume I'm a white person because of how biased our culture is, and then they just show up, and then I have to deal with. I don't know what the response will be. Like I have to deal with that. It's just like, am I lying to you because like I don't sound like what you think I should sound like, or my name isn't what you think my name should be, like, to give it away? And like I it's always a concern I have. I mean, like I've had people like admit to me, like upon meeting me, like, wow, they expected my voice to be deeper, or wow, you seem less intimidating than I expected, or etc. etc.
Okay.
Weird.
Less intimidating. A weird thing to say. Somebody?
Is that just what people expect of like music promoters?
No.
Be a standoffish dude with like full tattoo sleeves and a beard, being like, I
don't like your band. Is that what everybody expects?
Well, actually, that's a separate thing in terms of music promotion, but partially. No, just interactions, like expectations of Black people, for example. Like, I'll be more intimidating, or I'll be deeper voiced, or a more masculine bull type. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in terms of promoting, like that goes in with it too. Like usually people, like I've had people, I've had a few people who don't know me, like hear about me, and they're like, "Oh, Daniel G. Wilson. He must be some kind of it must be some kind of gruff dude promoter with a cap or something, and he like smoking a cigarette. And yeah, I don't like your band, or like or some shit like that, or like some kind of problematic thing. And it's just like, nope. They I've had people walk past me at shows. Like just walk past me because they don't notice I'm the promoter,
Yeah.
or like not realize I'm the person putting it on. Like even if I'm at the cash register, they'll just be like, "Oh, cool show," and like, yeah, I put it on.
Yeah. That was me. Come on. Respect a little bit.
Yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
dealing with those is always interesting. The walk past is my favorite though. I at this point I just go tap people on the shoulders like, "Hi, I put the show on. I was just trying to say hi to you. Like, welcome to the show. You could acknowledge me, you know."
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't do this to, I could name every other white or white passing promoter. You wouldn't do this to them, would you? Or, the shit with bands, stuff like that. But enough about me.
I was
uh
feeling you on that walk past. This one time we were playing a show in a frat house, and this guy was watching, and he came to us. He came to us after, and we were standing in a line watching the show. Came to each of the members, was like, "Your band is really good. I really enjoyed your set." To Ian, and then Steve, and then Brent, and then he looked me in the eye and he walked that way.
That was so lame.
Yeah,
I remember just watching him walk away, just being like, "Wait, what the? Wow!"
You saw me. You saw my band.
Even had a chance to like be like, "Oh, when you were in the band, I recognize you now. I looked at you." No,
Yeah.
no.
Cool. All right.
Oh man. Oh man. Yeah, it's just explaining these things to people, you know what I mean? It's just explaining these things to people. It's like, it's the weirdest thing. And it's weird thing is like, even the avenues I have where I can kind of pass technically because of the name aspect, like it's only if people do not do any research, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure like Danielle, you could probably like, I guess, have a similar experience there. I'm not sure. And just like, yeah, yeah, as you said, people see your name and they're like, where are you from? What are you? Kind of thing.
What are you? My favorite question.
Yeah, and then it's just, and then after that, it's just like, and then like you then have to deal with the stress. At least for me, if it's like, okay, if I continue on this path, like every interaction, like when they figure out what I look like, are they going to, like, are they going to react negatively? Are they going to be like, are they going to be racist? Are they going to be passive aggressive? Like, how is this going to impact everything? Because I don't.
Yeah, very true. I I think it's funny because I just like, I try to use those moments now to like let them sit in discomfort a little bit, at least a little bit. If somebody is like, "So where are you from? What are you?" I'm like, "What do you think I am?" Go ahead, guess. Like, just guess. Just take a guess. And a lot of the times, like, maybe they will like do the guessing game, and then I'll like do the guessing game with them. But a lot of the times, which is funny, I think they were like, "Oh, I don't want to guess. I don't want to offend you." And then I'm like, "Well, why did you ask then? Why did you ask?" Honestly. And they, generally don't have an answer, or they say, "Oh, well, I was curious because you're so beautiful," or some shit like that. Like just absolute BS. But I think it's important to, even if you like move on from that topic pretty quickly, I think it's important to make that moment uncomfortable for them, because when you let it slide, you give them a free pass. So I always try to make that moment a little bit weird.
Reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you give them a pass on it as well, they might kind of think they'll just ask another person, and like that next person might not be so nice.
Like somebody else? Do you mean like, because I've had like people like go to my friend and be like, "So what ethnicity is your friend?" I want to know.
Oh God. Oh God. No, but
just so they can be right when they ask you later.
Yeah, or like,
they're like, "So are you from India?"
Yeah.
Oh my.
Or I've had people like, like, this is in like different environments at work and stuff, but it's like, So my friend and I were arguing about what race you are. We want you to tell us so we can figure out who's right.
God.
What the?
Oh yeah, it's good. It's good shit.
God. God, I had God. I have mixed race, like I have mixed nephews.
I have a mixed niece.
Right? They're adorable. And you know, and like like they pretty much just pass for like they pretty much just pass as white kids. My two nephews, but they tan like they like the way they tan and some of their physical features like they look they look like they have a they have a black granny, but like they look like they have a black granny or great grandmother. Like they look like they're from kind of like they're ambiguous enough where you're kind of like, are they from like the southern part of Italy or something, especially during the summer? But like but like as well, because like my whole family, like my I'm Afro Jamaican, but like my entire family, like we're all like it's a mixed group. So like I have
Mhm.
relatives who look like Brent, for example, and they're not like
That's wild, yeah.
far removed from me. But like so that's kind of how my nephews ended up coming out. But like hello, one and all. Well, that was amazing. So, this we end out the first night of the festival. Normally, we always start the festival with a show at the Baby G. Unfortunately, that couldn't happen this year. I've been canceling the Facebook events for the live festival as in the past 2 days. Yeah, I know it's been depressing, but what can you do? Life moves on, as they say. So, for this little party, we had some amazing artists. Thank you to Apollo Architect. Thank you to Seasonal Depression Lasts Forever. And yeah, tomorrow we got a cool lineup. We got Shirazi, we got Animatus, we got Uncotton Promise, and we got Unknown Voids playing live from the Houndstooth, and some other stuff. So stay tuned for that. Once again, I am Daniel G. Wilson. Please come back tomorrow on all these channels to watch what happens next. Yeah. And without further ado, I'm just going to leave you with another Dronker video because why the fuck not? And I'm gonna leave you with a bit of my interview with a US band named called Wife Patrol. Catch y'all people on the flip side.
What is a podcast anymore?
Right?
Could be. All you got to do is put it on there, and it's a podcast.
Who knows? Maybe I'll make a cartoon out of it, like that Midnight Gospel thing.
Yes.
I forget what that was. Was that a? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We're really good at tangents, so you
I know,
got to keep
you
us
gotta
on
watch it.
task.
Because now I see that on my Netflix queue every so often. I'm like, what the hell is this? Nothing about it is making sense to me. But okay, if it came from a podcast, that makes more sense than anything else.
Wait until you watch it. It's a mind trip. But no. All right. So yeah. Without further ado, today on the Festival Lingua Franca interview series, I will be interviewing the illustrious Wife Patrol. Introduce yourselves, people.
My name is Nicole. I play bass and sing in Wife Patrol.
Hi, I'm Natasha. I play drums and sing in Wife Patrol.
I'm Greg. I play guitar and sing, also in Wife Patrol.
Cool. Pleasure to
Our pleasure.
All righty. Now, let me kick this. Let's kick this off by going on that tangent. Mostly because it's just kind of fun. Like, yeah, this guy, Duncan Trussell, I think is his name.
Yeah, Duncan Trussell. I used to listen to his podcast, The Lavender Hour.
Perfect.
The plot thickens.
Yeah.
So he basically, like, with Pendleton Ward, the guy from Adventure Time, he basically like made this cartoon where like he would adapt bits from his interviews with different people into like these abstract, surreal like cartoon episodes where the dialogue is like of the characters for like 90% of the dialogue is basically like bits from the interviews.
From the interview, yeah.
Whoa.
And then a few like additions for like obviously making a storyline, if you can call them a storyline.
So is that what the thing is for the show that's on Netflix now, or is it a totally different thing?
Oh, that's for the show. Like that was a show. He adapted like his old podcast episodes.
Whoa.
I love this. In theory, I feel like I'd watch this. Is weird, but right now
It looks so cool. Like the look of it is so messed up.
But you know my threshold for weird.
That's
so
true.
Does it look like something that I'd be like, I don't understand what's
Nicole's
happening?
got a low bar for weirdness.
Yeah.
I will say it's a different bar. I will argue it's a different bar.
It's
There
a different
was-
bar.
I
I
had-
think you'd have interesting dreams after watching it, probably.
I had tickets to see 2001
Oh my gosh, you will never get over this.
presented in 75 millimeter, and I couldn't make it. It was wrenching. They tour this around the world, and I couldn't see it. It had come to Indianapolis. Nothing ever comes to Indianapolis, so I had to give it up. I'm like, Nicole, these tickets are yours. I can't make it. Natasha's going, so they went. Nicole's like, I fell asleep. This is stupid.
I didn't say it was stupid. I said I didn't get it. I have a lot of questions. Like, I don't understand. Like, why? How does everyone know this thing is called the monolith? When nowhere in the movie did they say this is the monolith. But everyone's like, the monolith. I'm like, it looked like a big remote control in the sky. And I don't understand. Is there a book I was supposed to read? Did I need to study before this? Like, I don't get it.
I missed the Star Child's Chiron when it was on.
I was so confused.
Star Child's lower third.
Yeah.
I just remember leaving it, and I called my brother on my way home, and I was like, so I just watched 2001 A Space Odyssey. And he just like sits there, and I go, and he goes, you didn't get it, did you? I'm like, I'm so confused. I didn't even have to actually say it. It was just the silence spoke volumes that he's just like, she did not get this
I
movie.
mean, nobody knows what the hell's going on their first time through. No one knows what's in that movie. I just thought it was hilarious that your first experience was at an IMAX
70 millimeter.
with
Yeah.
just
Best possible way.
this incoherent nonsense like blared at your face for 3 hours or whatever it is
I couldn't even appreciate it.
in a stadium.
I'm like, I don't understand.
A stadium of confusion.
Oh,
Amazing.
God.
But I will say, this show you're talking about, where they've put the podcast into like cartoon or whatever the show is, makes me think of Drunk History, where they have like the actors have to reenact and like voice right on top of somebody else telling the story, and I do love that.
Okay, that's very similar. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I could possibly make it. I could give it a shot. We can Netflix party it and see what happens.
Yeah.
I encourage it. If anything, then just to see some surreal imagery.
Yeah.
Okay. On to my questions. All right.
Great. I love this ramp up.
All right. So, now, I'll basically get started. I'll basically get started with a few things. So, full disclosure, I found your band. I forget if by almost accident one day, like about I think a few months ago. I just found, oh, I like the name. The music's dope. Okay, you have a fan.
Sweet. Sounds like us.
Excellent.
So, but I also know, like, you guys have been around for a few years, but have, I guess, for a few years, but I've only kind of recently started to, like, I don't know if it's appropriate, if this is the appropriate wording, but, like, you know, in the past few, only kind of ironically during quarantine, I've noticed you guys have been getting a lot more attention. I'm curious, like, what's as a band, like, what's your experience been over the past length of being a band? Like, I don't know, what's changed in the past year? Did you make a deal with the gods to, like,
The hype gods?
We went down to the crossroads.
Yeah.
Did you, like, yeah, exactly, did you make a deal where it's like, okay, we'll get you some hype, but, like, the world has to be under quarantine? It's like,
Yeah.
okay.
We went to the Buzz Oracle, and this is the deal we made. It
We
was
did a
struck.
tarot card reading, and then
Yeah.
I would say one thing, I mean, definitely this quarantine situation has changed a lot of things. 'Cause prior, you know, we mostly only played shows around Indianapolis. We did a few other shows out of state, but not very many. And so I think we were kind of planning with this album this year that it would be an opportunity to open some doors and do some more like touring over the summer. But of course, that didn't end up being a part of the plan. So many things were put on hold and on pause. But the opportunity to do things like live streams and interviews and things opened up a chance to connect with a wider audience than we would have here. So in a way, each time we've only done 2 live stream concerts so far, but it's been a great way to connect with people that we otherwise would not see because we had not been to those places before. So I think that's just really interesting, the way that this whole, whatever we want to call it, of a year has kind of just opened up doors that it's not like they haven't ever been open, but we haven't always been paying attention to them in the same way. Like, it's not like Zoom didn't exist before, 2020, and now that we kind of have the necessity of needing to use these things to communicate and reach out. It's been really interesting to take those opportunities to connect with more people.
Totally. Yeah. And I would say too, part of the reason that, we've been playing together for as many years as we have, but we're like just now ramping up to, a debut LP is in large part, like, speaking for myself, is just inexperience. I had not even picked up drumsticks really until we had formed as a band. And so though we've been playing together for 5 years, like, that's been a learning curve of me even trying to learn an instrument. Like, this is my first band that I've ever been in. I've never, I never even did karaoke before this band. So, just very tiny baby steps into being part of kind of the rock scene as a performer, though I've been a fan for a long time. I've,
and a music
done
journalist.
Yeah, music writing, music photography for a long time, but just never participated as a performer previously. And so I think that's kind of part of it too, is us just like taking our time coalescing as a band, learning to write songs together, and me like learning an instrument and having everyone be patient with me as I was, ramping up like my understanding of the drums, which is like still pretty nascent.
Also, I must say, I love karaoke. And
Yes.
we have karaoke to
Tangent alert! Tangent alert!
Karaoke together a number of times. And it's always really, really fun.
It's joyous.
Do you have a go-to, Nicole? I forget.
It's hard because it depends on the night. It depends on the mood.
Yeah.
It depends on what's happening. I would say songs that I usually will throw out there. We Belong Together by Mariah Carey.
Mm-hmm.
That's always a good crowd pleaser. Rumor Has It by Adele is another one that I do enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
More recently, Betty Davis Eyes.
Okay.
I know, Natasha, it's not your, but it's just a fun song.
I'm a fan when you sing it, Nicole.
Natasha is the lone non-fan of Betty Davis Eyes. That is that song
She
is
got Betty Davis Eyes.
that's my
See,
birth
there you
song.
go.
That's the song from the year of my birth. So
Yeah.
it's
It's a
like
good
my
jam.
sign. It's like my star sign.
Yeah.
It's a surprise one.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I do love to pull out the surprises though. One time I went to this sort of hole in the wall karaoke bar, and it was kind of like a country vibe. It was definitely like all much older white folks.
Some good old boys were in the house then.
And I walked in because my friend's like, "This place is cool," and I walked in. I'm like,
So when you say cool,
right? I was like, I don't know about this. And I heard this woman as I got up. She's like, because I told you I have to fill out the room. She's like, I can't wait to hear what this kid's gonna rap. And so I was like, okay, now we got expectations. So I went up and I did Fist City by Loretta Lynn. Because I was like, I'm gonna show y'all I know country music.
Oh, yeah.
And it ended up being a really good time. So
Of course.
you got to read the room.
Yeah.
That's my tip to any aspiring karaokeers out there. Or even if you just want to sing anytime, you just read the room.
Yeah.
Sometimes karaoke though is about taking a room hostage for your own needs. That's my style.
As long as it's not Creep by Radiohead.
I don't care what room it
I'm
is.
good.
It's time for Wind of Change by Scorpions.
But anyway, back to the present. Yeah, I mean, we've been playing together since fall of 2015, and we've been friends about as long as we've been a band, if not a little bit longer. We met a little before, but we've grown a lot as friends, as people who play together in a band, learning how to write together, how to perform together. And so it's just really exciting to be having this album come out now and having the opportunity to connect with so many people at a time when we're really, we've been playing for 5 years now. We've put out a couple of EPs and we've played live shows, and I just feel like it's a nice culmination of where we've journeyed together.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Very cool. I'm honestly stoked. I'm honestly stoked to see where you journey next. Hopefully it's, into Canada when quarantine's over.
Well, I know it's better there, but how much better is it there? Can you go places?
Help us understand.
What's it like to live in a place where?
What's it like out there?
What's it like not to be scared all the time?
What's pandemic look like in Canada?
Well, God, I'm gonna be dating this interview heavily.
That's right. If we don't want to, that's fine. But just for our own edification.
Oh no, that's fine. Yeah. So Canada is pretty much every country in the world is handling this pandemic better than the States is. Like,
Not an unfair assessment.
like I'm Jamaican Canadian. Like, yeah, I talk the way I do, but like I lived in Jamaica. Like, I pay attention to the news there. They're handling it far better than the States is, and their healthcare system is not as advanced. That's not an indictment. It's not bad. It's just not technologically advanced, and they're handling it better.
It tends to help if you don't have a leader of a nation actively an antagonist to the health of your nation.
Yeah.
That would probably be a benefit.
Yes.
Pretty much. So I mean, you have my sympathy. We are, the cases in Canada it ranges because we have a much smaller population. We have better leadership, that in terms of this, though, some people here, are gonna will have complaints as in everywhere because there's no perfect way to handle it. But still, so small population, better handling, better healthcare system on top of that. So we've lessened restrictions in most areas of the country because it's just we're far more isolated. Like where I am, there's a lot more restrictions and kind of cases. It's still like not that many comparatively, but because like you have a higher population, we're around near Toronto.
Yeah.
But overall, like people can still go places. Like there are cities in Canada that can have like actual shows. Cities in regions that can have actual shows.
That?
Wow.
Right.
God.
And you can move around, and there's a lot of stuff. Like there's less paranoia. Like we're still all aware of the pandemic, and it's still a thing. People need to wear masks, and there's still restrictions, but it's less. And depending on where you live, like if I lived in Sudbury, like which is a town that's like 4 hours north of me, which is basically bumfuck. Actually, no, it's not bumfuck nowhere. Thunder Bay is bumfuck nowhere. But
says so on the sign.
yes. or Sault Ste. Marie, but like Sudbury is like basically when you start getting into bumfuck nowhere in Ontario. And if I lived there, I could like go and attend like a concert with like 50 people or more.
Wow.
That sounds terrifying to me. That's the state that we're in. Is that we're like, oh my gosh, a show with 50 people? That's terrifying. What do you do?
Right?
It's scary.
Yeah.
We tried opening up and then closed, and then they tried opening up again and then closed.
Yeah.
So that's
But then school started, and off you go, little kids.
Right.
Yeah.
Fend for yourselves. Good luck.
We've even been debating like opening schools here, and like we're having like, because like I have nephews, and like they had the option of doing distance learning, thankfully. So like even here when we're opening schools, like there's still the thing of like seeing how it goes instead of just not forcing everybody, because I don't know. I don't know. I guess the government doesn't want to force kids to get stuff. But
Would seem to be ideal. Would seem to be the way you'd want to go about it.
Right. Yeah.
Choice.
Yeah. but yeah, so it's it's not perfect. It's not perfect over here, but like pretty much every country is handling it better.
What you're saying is it's not perfect there, but we're doing better than y'all are.
Yes.
Yes.
But yeah.
We will not debate that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, we would lose.
So, but I'm hoping everyone survives long enough, because like I said, I gotta see you guys play up here, or I come down there. Actually, no.
We're great. We will
that'd be
run
awesome.
away to Canada.
I do
And
need to
live
update
in-
my passport.
Live in whatever room it is we're looking at. Your I don't know what this is. Is this a kitchen, a bedroom?
We're moving in.
It's my basement.
Okay. Oh, and you
Ooh,
got
we love-
basements up there?
See,
Okay.
we love
see?
basements.
We're in the
Yeah.
basement too.
We're a basement
Perfect.
band.
Yes.
Yep. We'll just do a basement transfer and it'll be good.
Yes.
Please take us in.
Oh God.
Can I bring my drum kit?
I have a drum kit in here, actually.
Oh my
Oh,
god.
we got a back
I
line
don't-
there.
look
We
at
don't even
that.
need
I
to-
don't even have to take my drums. I'll bring breakables.
Oh,
Can we
God.
borrow your amp?
Oh,
I know,
God.
now it does sound like a show.
Amazing.
Oh God. But on a serious note, yeah. Okay, back from this tangent. God, we're gonna watch this in like 5 years. It's like, oh yeah, that's when the world was ending. But
Yeah.
but yeah. So okay. That's pretty cool. It's like 5 years as a band is 5 years as a band. That's 5 years as a band, like that's I think I call that like the golden march. 'Cause- Mostly because like my band has been around for 5 years.
Yeah.
Hey, like some things start to make more sense at 5 years. Like,
Right?
Right.
a lot of things are easier than they were. But it's like you don't really think about it as much. When you stop and think about it, it's like, oh yeah, there are things that are way easier to communicate and ways to just work together that even in like the first or second year just would not have happened. So
Right. Totally.
we
Well, and
know so
even
much more about each other now.
even doing it new like ways of writing where because of the circumstances where we can't really, I mean, you see what it looks like when we get together. It looks like a like surgery theater or something. We have to sort of think of different ways to collaborate. And Nicole's got recording equipment now and ways to kind of multi-track and demo, and we have that here, so we can kind of trade, which is something we didn't do before. And now that's like, we've been together long enough that we can kind of write long distance that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Quote unquote long distance.
Yes. The handful of blocks.
I know we could like lean out of each other's windows and shout things to us. You probably hear, but we still can't like go to dinner together.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Sorry to keep bringing it back to that. That's every day. We can't, there's nothing else
Yeah.
to think about.
Yeah.
Fair.
That's why this album is, we've been so heavily promoting. It's just something else to focus on.
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
Give us some good news.
Yeah.
Feel good about something.
Yeah.
Well, I'm also very happy about because I have something to listen to on repeat.
Oh, nice.
Awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for putting out some cool music. Speaking of music, now one question I have. Now this is particularly pertaining to mostly to the song "How to Lose." Now that was the song. That was like the standout song when I like checked out you guys.
Oh, cool.
And like, and I'm not gonna lie, like that was the song you recorded, like the first time you recorded "Distance," right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
I have to say, I was like, how did you recorded this distance? Like, what the fuck? The vocals,
Yeah.
the vocals, just the kind of like sparseness of the arrangement in a way that is very much that it reminded me so much of like a bit like 90s music to a degree. And
Yeah.
I'm